The last thing Nate Parker expected when he woke up that morning was to see an alien trying to wrestle with a defibrillator. "Why does it keep yelling at me?" the towering alien physician, Dr. Therak Volan, growled. The defibrillator, glowing faintly in the sterile Martian light, emitted a high-pitched warning tone every time he jabbed at its controls with his claw-like appendages. "It's not yelling at you, Doc," Nate replied, barely suppressing a grin. "It's saying you're using it upside down." Therak's iridescent crest flared, a sure sign of his frustration. "This primitive contraption is an affront to medical science. Why do humans rely on such barbaric tools?" Nate leaned against the medical bay counter, sipping his Martian strong coffee, which could practically dissolve the red dust off rover wheels. "Because, Doc, barbaric tools get the job done, unlike your fancy scanners that beep politely while people die." Therak gave Nate a look that could have curdled milk on Earth. "Primitive," he muttered again, though he turned the defibrillator the right way up. Mars General Hospital was the pride of humanity's off-world medical achievements, or so the brochures claimed. Perched inside Olympus Mons's shadow, the hospital had been built to withstand everything Mars threw at it: sandstorms, radiation bursts, and even the occasional overly enthusiastic mining drill that accidentally triggered a tremor. Inside, it was a madhouse. Humans and aliens bustled around, trying to manage the mix of Earth-style chaos and Martian unpredictability. The air smelled faintly metallic, thanks to the oxygen recyclers, and every hallway had at least one out-of-order sign taped to a panel. "Parker," barked Dr. Alex Hunter, striding into the medical bay. His sandy blonde hair stuck up in every direction, and his sharp blue eyes scanned the room like he was already annoyed about something. "Tell me you didn't let Volan touch human tech again." "Define let," Nate replied with a shrug. Hunter pinched the bridge of his nose. "We've got 2 emergencies on deck, and I need you both in OR3 now. Volan, if you break one more piece of equipment—" "I am a certified physician from the esteemed Zarnath Institute of Galactic Medicine," Therak interrupted, puffing out his broad chest. "I do not break things." Behind him, the defibrillator let out one final pathetic beep and powered down completely. Hunter sighed. "Right, both of you, with me." The OR3 emergency was, as expected, a mess. 2 patients lay on adjacent tables, one human, one alien. The human, a miner from Colony 7, had managed to fracture his femur in 3 places during a gravity experiment gone wrong. The alien patient, a Drexian with redundant organs for days, was convulsing from what appeared to be a severe reaction to Mars's filtered water supply. 2 patients, 1 OR, Hunter muttered as he scanned their charts. "Let's not make this a headline." Nate adjusted his scrubs. "So, what's the plan, Doc?" "We split up," Hunter said. "I'll handle the human. Volan, you take the Drexian. And for the love of everything oxygenated, don't improvise." Therak bristled. "I do not improvise. I adapt with precision." "Good," Hunter replied, already setting a fractured leg. "Because the last time you adapted, we had to explain to 3 galactic councils why you used alien plasma therapy on a human's sprained ankle." As the procedures began, the differences in approach became glaringly obvious. Hunter worked with a quiet intensity, using the hospital's ancient but reliable tools to stabilize the human patient. Meanwhile, Therak struggled with the Drexian's redundant biology, muttering alien curses under his breath. "Human tools are maddening," Therak growled, accidentally snapping a pair of surgical forceps. "Your equipment barely functions under proper conditions." "That's because we don't need it to sing lullabies," Nate shot back, passing Therak a replacement. "We just need it to work." Things took a turn when the hospital's oxygen recycler, a temperamental beast of a machine, decided it was time to break down. The air in OR3 grew thin, alarms blaring in every direction. "Of course," Hunter muttered, "because what's a day on Mars without a system failure?" Therak's crest flared. "What is happening?" "Oxygen recyclers down," Nate said. "Standard Martian drama. Nothing to panic about unless you enjoy breathing." Therak stared at him. "This is unacceptable. How do humans survive in such chaos?" "Welcome to Mars," Nate replied. You get used to it. The blaring alarms in OR3 were almost loud enough to drown out Dr. Therak Volan's increasingly colorful alien curses. Almost. Humans willingly operate in these conditions? Therak bellowed, his iridescent crest flaring wildly. How is this acceptable? Nate Parker tossed a replacement oxygen canister into a wall-mounted emergency supply station. It's not acceptable, Volan. It's Mars. Stuff breaks. We fix it. Welcome to the job. Dr. Alex Hunter didn't look up from setting the miner's fractured femur. Parker, get the backup recycler online before Volan spontaneously combusts. Working on it, Nate said, already halfway out the door. Try not to kill each other while I'm gone. Therak glared at Hunter as he adjusted the Drexian's vitals. Your hospital is a death trap. My facilities on Zarnath operate with precision and efficiency. Hunter glanced up briefly, blue eyes sharp. On Zarnath, your patients probably aren't trying to mine asteroids in 38% gravity. Out here, we do what we can with what we've got. The Drexian patient convulsed slightly, and Therak hissed in frustration. Mars is uninhabitable. Why would humans build here? Because we can, Hunter replied, his tone matter-of-fact. That's what we do. We adapt. Therak paused, studying Hunter's steady hands. Your species thrives on chaos. Hunter smirked. And you're just now figuring that out? Nate sprinted back into Oregon 3 just as the lights flickered ominously. Good news. I got the recycler patched. Bad news. The backup's old enough to run for president. The air was thinning fast, and even the Drexian patient's redundant lungs struggled to keep up. Hunter grabbed a portable oxygen mask, snapping it onto the miner's face. Parker, Hunter said, tell me you've got a plan. Nate grinned. Do you want the smart plan, or the one that's likely to set off another alarm? Whichever one works. Nate dragged a cart loaded with emergency oxygen tanks into the room. All right, we're going old school. Manual oxygen delivery. Therak recoiled. You're joking. Hunter laughed under his breath. Oh, he's not joking. This is barbaric, Therak snapped, waving an appendage toward the tanks. No advanced species would resort to such... Volan, we don't have time for your monologue, Hunter interrupted. Hook up the Drexian or step aside. Grumbling in his native tongue, Therak reluctantly secured the mask to his patient. If this fails, I will file a formal complaint with the Galactic Council. If this fails, Nate quipped, we'll all be too oxygen-starved to care. With the oxygen tanks stabilizing the patients, the team worked quickly. Hunter set the final piece of the miner's fractured femur, securing it with a Martian-grade alloy. Across the room, Therak monitored the Drexian's redundant organs, muttering about primitive methods every 10 seconds. When the alarms finally quieted, Hunter stepped back, letting out a long breath. Well, that was fun. Fun? Therak's crest flared again. That was chaos. Chaos we handled, Hunter said, unflappable. Welcome to Martian medicine. As the patient stabilized, Therak paced the room, visibly agitated. Your hospital is a testament to human recklessness. And yet, Nate said, leaning casually against the wall, you're here. Using our tools, treating your patients. Funny how that works. Therak froze, his iridescent form flickering. I admit your methods are effective, despite their barbarism. Hunter grinned. We'll take that as a compliment. All right, Nate Parker said, arms crossed. Who ordered the plague? He wasn't joking. The emergency ward at Mars General was packed with alien patients, most of them convulsing, glowing faintly, or producing sounds no sentient being should ever make. A fluorescent yellow Drexian clung to a biobed, wheezing with all 3 of its lungs. Across the room, a crystalline alien emitted a series of sharp, high-pitched tones that set off every motion sensor in the ward. Dr. Alex Hunter stood in the middle of the chaos, flipping through patient charts on his tablet. 24 cases in the last 8 hours, symptoms across multiple species, no obvious connection except... He trailed off, glancing at Nate. Except they all drank the water, Nate finished, grimacing. Hunter sighed. Of course it's the water. Why wouldn't it be the water? Dr. Therak Volan entered the ward with the elegance of a creature who had never been rushed in his life. His iridescent crest shimmered as he surveyed the chaos. "This is unacceptable," he declared, folding his appendages. "Mars is a wasteland. It was only a matter of time before your primitive infrastructure failed." Hunter gave him a withering look. "Volan, if you're here to complain, take a number. Otherwise, grab a scanner and help me figure this out." Therak bristled but complied, scanning the nearest patient. "It appears to be a form of microbial contamination, likely specific to Martian soil." "Great," Nate muttered. "The planet's trying to kill us. Again." After hours of investigation, Hunter and Therak gathered the staff in the break room. The holographic display in front of them showed a magnified image of Martian soil microbes. "Here's the problem," Hunter said, pointing at the wriggling organisms. "These little guys are harmless to humans. We've adapted, but they're toxic to a lot of alien species." Therak tilted his head. "And how exactly did humans adapt to this hostile planet?" "Trial and error," Nate said. "Mostly error." Therak frowned. "Your species thrives on chaos." "Glad you're catching on," Hunter replied. Therak naturally had a solution. "We should synthesize an antimicrobial compound using Zarnathian biotech. It's advanced, efficient, and—" "Completely useless for half these species," Hunter interrupted. "Your tech doesn't account for human biology or Martian gravity." Therak's crest flared. "And your solution?" "Basic water filtration," Hunter said. "Plus a microbial neutralizer made from Martian soil. Cheap, fast, and it works." Therak stared at him as if he'd suggested treating a broken leg with duct tape. "That is the most barbaric suggestion I have ever heard." "Barbaric," Hunter said, grabbing his coat, "but effective. Nate, you're with me. Volan, stay here and make yourself useful." In the hospital's lab, Hunter and Nate worked quickly, cobbling together a crude but functional microbial neutralizer. It was essentially a modified filtration device, but with the addition of Martian soil enzymes to break down the contaminants. "This looks like it's held together with duct tape and optimism," Nate said, holding the prototype. "It probably is," Hunter replied. "Run the test batch." Nate flipped a switch, and the machine hummed to life. Within moments, the water sample came out clear, and the microbes were neutralized. Hunter smirked. "Primitive, huh?" Back in the ward, the first patient, a fluorescent Drexian, was given the purified water. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then the Drexian's breathing stabilized, and its glow dimmed to a healthy green. "It's working," Hunter said, exhaling with relief. Therak loomed nearby, clearly unimpressed. "Even a broken chronometer is correct twice a cycle." Hunter ignored him. "Start distributing this to the other patients. Nate, monitor their vitals." As the staff sprang into action, the ward gradually stabilized. Patients began to recover, and the crisis subsided. As the last patient was discharged, Therak approached Hunter in the hallway. "Your methods are unconventional, reckless even." Hunter raised an eyebrow. "And?" "And effective," Therak admitted reluctantly. "I underestimated human adaptability." Hunter grinned. "Don't worry, Volan. It happens to everyone." The lights in Mars General's central command room flickered ominously. Outside, a Martian sandstorm howled, rattling the reinforced windows. Inside, Dr. Alex Hunter stared at the alerts on the holographic display, his jaw tightening. "Of course," he muttered, "because one crisis at a time isn't enough." "2 emergencies," Nate Parker said, leaning over the console. "1 human, 1 alien, both critical. And in case you didn't notice, the storm's about to knock out our power." Therak Volan stepped into the room, his iridescent crest gleaming despite the dim light. "I assume this is another example of your species' chaotic resilience." Hunter gestured to the display. "You're not off the hook, Volan. The Drexian ship brought something nasty back from their mining expedition. Half their crew is down with organ failure, and they're counting on us to save them." Therak examined the holographic readout. "Their biology is complex but manageable." Hunter folded his arms. Great. Then you won't mind handling that while I deal with the human patient suffering from acute Martian hypoxia after an EVA suit malfunction. Nate raised an eyebrow. You're splitting the team. We don't have a choice, Hunter said. If we wait for the storm to pass, we'll lose both patients. Volan, you're with me in OR2. Nate, prep the human patient in OR3. In OR2, Therak leaned over the unconscious Drexian patient, his crest twitching in concentration. Their third liver is compromised, along with secondary digestive tracts. If we lose these organs, recovery will be impossible. Hunter adjusted the bioscan readout. So, what's your plan? A plasma rejuvenation technique from Zarnath, Therak replied confidently. It stimulates regeneration at the cellular level. Hunter raised an eyebrow. Does it work under Martian gravity? Therak hesitated. It should. Should doesn't cut it, Hunter said, grabbing a syringe filled with Martian-adapted enzymes. We'll stabilize the liver manually first. Your plasma magic can come later. Therak muttered something in Zarnathian that sounded suspiciously like an insult, but followed Hunter's lead. In OR3, Nate Parker monitored the human patient's vitals as the storm battered the hospital. The oxygen recycler was struggling, and the patient's levels were plummeting. All right, Nate said to himself, grabbing a portable oxygen tank. Time for some manual magic. As he secured the mask, the patient's vitals stabilized, but not for long. The oxygen recycler sputtered, sending warning lights flashing across the room. Seriously? Nate groaned, smacking the console. Can we get through one day without everything breaking? He grabbed his comm unit. Hunter, I need a backup recycler yesterday. As if on cue, the lights in both ORs dimmed. The emergency systems kicked in, bathing the rooms in eerie red light. Perfect, Hunter said through gritted teeth. Volan, hold the stabilizer while I am not your assistant, Therak snapped. Do you want this patient to live? Hunter shot back. Therak growled but complied, his precise movements betraying his frustration. In OR3, Nate cursed under his breath as he adjusted the portable oxygen unit. All right, manual override it is. Let's see if Mars can keep it together for 5 more minutes. Despite the power outage and the raging storm, the team pressed on. In OR2, Hunter and Therak managed to stabilize the Drexian patient's organs using a mix of human improvisation and Zarnathian precision. The tension between them gave way to a grudging respect as the patient's vitals improved. You humans, Therak muttered, are insufferable. And you're welcome, Hunter replied with a smirk. In OR3, Nate's quick thinking kept the human patient alive until the recycler sputtered back to life. See, he said to the unconscious patient, Mars isn't so bad once you get used to it. Hours later, both patients were stable, and the storm had begun to subside. The hospital staff gathered in the break room, exhausted but triumphant. Therak sat stiffly in a corner, his crest lowered in a gesture of reluctant humility. Your methods, he said to Hunter, are unorthodox. Hunter raised his coffee mug. But they work. Therak inclined his head. That they do. Nate leaned back in his chair, grinning. So, Volan, does this mean you're finally on Team Human? Do not push your luck, Therak replied, though his tone lacked its usual edge. As the staff dispersed, Hunter glanced out the window at the Martian landscape, the red dust settling under the dim sunlight. Mars was unforgiving, unpredictable, and downright hostile, but that's what made it the perfect proving ground for humanity. We're not just surviving here, he muttered to himself. We're thriving. Behind him, Therak approached, his voice quieter than usual. Perhaps chaos is not such a disadvantage after all. Hunter smirked. Stick around long enough, Volan, and you might even start to enjoy it.